All stories uploaded by Epic Yarn are works of fiction submitted by various contributors and subscribers. These narratives are crafted for entertainment and storytelling purposes, with no claims of factual accuracy or real-world events. Additionally, the images accompanying each story are generated using AI technology, designed to visually enhance the storytelling experience.
The first thing you learn when you're living in your truck is how to make a 3-year-old think it's a camping trip. "Daddy, are we pirates again?" Emma whispered as she climbed onto the back seat, wrapped in the same worn blanket we'd shared for the last 4 nights. "Damn right, Captain Bunny," I said, handing her the plush rabbit that had somehow survived juice spills, marker tattoos, and this goddamn week of winter. She giggled, settling in, the windows fogged over with our breath. Outside, the city was just waking up, dog walkers in hoodies, trucks groaning past, early risers gripping to-go coffee like it was the last warmth left in the world. I sat in the driver's seat, shivering in silence. My fingers itched for a pencil, some clean paper, anything to get this pressure out of my chest. But all my gear was boxed in the trunk. Useless now. My design shop, my baby, my future, had shuttered last Friday. Landlord tossed the locks. Client stopped calling weeks before that. No backup plan. No family. No miracle. Just Emma. And the tight knot of fear I hid behind smiles. I tried not to wake her as I opened the door and stepped into the cold. We were parked near the corner of 3rd in May, a sleepy block I used to pass when things were better. My breath hung in the air as I jogged in place, rubbing my arms. Every bone ached. Across the street, I saw a storefront I didn't recognize. The Roasted Oak. Chalkboard out front. Lights warm inside. No music, no hipster signage. Just a man inside, wiping down counters like he cared about doing it right. I hesitated. I hadn't had a real cup of coffee in a week. Fuck it. I checked the truck. Emma was curled up, thumb in her mouth, Captain Bunny in a chokehold. I cracked the windows, locked the doors, and crossed over. A bell chimed when I walked in. The warmth hit first. Real warmth, not the stale kind from your car vents. It smelled like espresso and vanilla and something baking. Then I saw him. Behind the counter, wearing a gray Henley and sleeves rolled to his forearms, was a man maybe a few years older than me. Tall, dark hair, tousled like he'd run his hands through it all morning. Hazel eyes, warm and a little tired. He looked up from the pastry tray and smiled, like he was actually glad to see me. "Cold out there," he said, reaching for a mug. I stay by the door, dripping rainwater onto the rug. "Yeah, been a week of it." He poured coffee into a ceramic mug, not paper, ceramic, and set it on the counter. "No questions. No price." I raised a brow. "What's the catch?" "No catch," he said. "Just seemed like you needed it." I didn't want pity. I'd had enough of that from strangers who looked away when they noticed the duffel bag under my feet at the library, or the way Emma's coat was a size too small. But this wasn't pity. This was something else. Something softer. I walked to the counter, gripped the mug, and let the warmth seep into my hands. "Thanks. I'm Nate," he said. "Owner. Barista. Occasional therapist." "Luke." He nodded, then paused, eyes flicking to the window where my truck was parked. He couldn't see Emma, but something about the way his mouth pressed into a line told me he knew. Or guessed. Or had been there himself. I took a sip. Fuck. Real coffee. Strong, smooth, just enough bitterness. "You make this?" I asked. He leaned on the counter. "Roast it myself. House blend. I call it Atticus. Like to kill a mockingbird." "Exactly. Reliable, a little bold, doesn't bullshit you." I laughed. First real one in days. It felt strange in my throat. We stood there a minute. The shop was empty. Soft jazz played low in the background, something old and lazy and beautiful. A place like this could have been intimidating, pretentious. But instead, it felt like a small exhale. "You got somewhere to be?" he asked carefully. I thought about lying, about giving him some version of myself that still had a job, a routine, a plan. Instead, I said, "Not really." He studied me a second. "If you're looking for work, I could use someone. Couple hours a day. Clearing tables, wiping menus. Nothing fancy." I stared at him. You offering a job to a stranger who walked in off the street, dripping wet and smelling like sleep deprivation? He shrugged. Everyone starts somewhere. I didn't say yes right away. Pride's a stubborn bastard. But I thought of Emma, still asleep in the back seat. Her cough. The way her face lit up when I handed her a hot cup of milk last night, like it was treasure. So I nodded. And Nate smiled again. Not the kind that says, I saved someone today, but the kind that says maybe this could matter. I wasn't looking for kindness that morning. I just wanted coffee. But sometimes, what saves you isn't loud. It's warm. It's quiet. It's a man behind a counter offering you a second chance with nothing but a mug and a smile. The next morning, I came back. Not because I was sure. Not because I believed in fresh starts. But because I had nowhere else to go. Emma was strapped to my back in her old carrier, her arms around my neck, breath warm against my shoulder as she murmured a sleepy daddy-yaddy into my ear. I kissed the top of her head and stepped into the roasted oak, wondering if maybe I'd imagined the whole thing. Nate, the offer, the warmth that had crawled up my spine after a week of sleeping in a freezing car. But there he was, behind the counter again, same rolled sleeves, same disheveled hair, and a look like he'd been waiting on me. You showed up, he said with a small grin. Good. I said I would. I muttered, shifting Emma's weight. He reached below the counter and slid a muffin wrapped in a napkin across. Blueberry. Still warm. Breakfast for your co-pilot. Emma's sleepy eyes blinked open at the smell, and she reached for it without hesitation. Thank you, she said, mouth full. She's polite, Nate said, impressed. She knows how to hustle, I said. She's been working the cute angle since birth. He laughed. You want coffee before or after I show you the ropes? Before, I said, without hesitation. It wasn't glamorous. No espresso pulling or latte art or cute aprons. Just clearing tables, wiping them down, refilling sugar caddies, folding napkins, and stacking chairs when the mid-morning rush died down. I liked it. It was simple, straightforward. No client changes. No deadlines. No fake smiles. Just movement. I could feel my body again. Emma sat by the window in a little reading nook with a stack of crayons Nate had dug up and a coloring book left behind by someone's kid. She hummed to herself, swinging her legs, chewing the muffin like it was a delicacy. Nate moved around the space like he owned it, because he did, but not in that controlling way. He didn't hover, didn't micromanage. He just let me be, and when I got something wrong, he showed me, never making it a thing. I didn't realize waiters needed a PhD in folding napkins, I said after trying and failing 3 times to match his crisp triangles. He smirked. You're lucky I'm not judging. I used to run financials for an investment firm and couldn't tie a bow tie until I opened this place. I looked up. You were a suit guy? Briefly. Hated it. Burned me out. What changed? He paused, looking around the cafe like he was remembering something. My dad. He died suddenly. Heart attack. The next week, I walked into my boss's office and quit. Used the inheritance to buy this place. Everyone told me it was stupid. Too risky. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. It's not stupid. He looked at me then, sharp and soft at once. Neither is trying again when the first thing you built falls apart. It caught me off guard how quickly he could see me, like he was reading my life off the lines on my face. There was something in the way he said it, like I wasn't a charity case, like he didn't feel sorry for me. He just saw me, and I wasn't used to being seen. At noon, I was stacking mugs when he nudged me. You free tomorrow? I shrugged, got a full schedule of wiping tears and pretending soup is gourmet in the back seat of my truck. But yeah, I'm free. He didn't flinch at the mention of the truck. That mattered. I'll put you on the morning shift again. Same deal. Coffee's on me. I'll throw in lunch too. I narrow my eyes. You feeding me so I work harder? He smirked. No, I'm feeding you so you stay. And maybe it was the way he said it, like it was just a fact, not a favor, but I felt something loosen in my chest. Not all the way, but enough to breathe. Later, after Emma fell asleep against me in the booth, cheeks stained with chocolate chip cookie crumbs, Nate sat across from me. You don't have to tell me your whole story, he said, but I get the feeling you've been carrying it alone. I looked at him for a long beat. My wife died when Emma was 6 months old, I said quietly. Car accident. Drunk driver. He didn't interrupt. I held it together for 3 years. Started my own design business. Did okay. But then the clients dried up. Rent hiked. I tried to float it, but you can't keep something afloat if you're sinking with it. Silence hung between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. I'm sorry, he said. Yeah. I exhaled. Me too. Emma stirred. I ran a hand over her curls. She calls me Captain Daddy. I added, smiling faintly. Thinks we're pirates when we sleep in the truck. Nate nodded slowly. She's lucky. No, I said, brushing her hair from her face. I'm the lucky one. When I left the shop that day, I didn't feel fixed. I didn't feel saved, but I felt seen. And sometimes that's the first thing that pulls you back from the edge. Someone noticing that you're still here. That maybe you're worth staying for. The third morning came with rain. Not the hard, punishing kind that makes you want to scream into your steering wheel, but the soft, steady drizzle that seems to soak straight into your bones. Emma was awake early, wiggling in her makeshift blanket fort in the back seat, whispering to Captain Bunny like they were planning a mutiny. Are we still pirates, Daddy? She asked through a yawn, rubbing sleep from her eyes. I looked out the windshield. Raindrops streamed down in lazy patterns, the kind you could trace with your fingertip if you were a kid and didn't know how heavy the world could get. Always, Captain, I said, but I think today we dock the ship and get pancakes. Her eyes lit up. With sprinkles? If the cook's in a good mood. The cook, of course, was Nate. I didn't know if he actually had sprinkles, but he had this way of making things happen without making it a big deal. That meant more than I could say. The roasted oak was warm again. That comforting, golden glow spilled out through the big windows like a promise. The kind of place that made you forget the cold outside for a while. I pushed the door open, balancing Emma on one hip and her small backpack in my free hand. The bell chimed. Nate looked up from behind the counter, wiping his hands on a dish towel, and smiled like we were the best thing to walk in all week. Hey, pirates, he said. Emma beamed. Hi, Nate. He walked around the counter, crouched down to her level. You ready for pancakes? First, mate. With sprinkles, she yelled. Then, quieter, please. He laughed. You're in luck. Got just enough left. While Emma sat at her window seat coloring and demolishing a plate of chocolate chip pancakes with a mountain of whipped cream and a handful of rainbow sprinkles, I wiped tables and stacked mugs, pretending not to watch Nate too much. But I did. There was something about him in motion. The quiet confidence, the way he moved like this place was an extension of him. Like he belonged here. Like he created it from scratch with nothing but stubbornness and heart. He caught me watching once. Didn't call it out. Just raised an eyebrow and smirked like he knew something I didn't. Later, during a lull, we leaned against opposite sides of the counter. Emma was napping again, her head resting on Captain Bunny, a syrup stain on her cheek. You look better, he said. I blinked. Then what? Then 2 days ago. Less haunted. I scoffed. I'm not haunted, just exhausted. Both can be true. I stared at the floor. Then quiet. It's weird. Sleeping in your truck with your kid doesn't make you feel like a man. Makes you feel like a failure. Nate didn't flinch, just waited. I glanced up. I'm trying. I really am. But there are days it feels like all I'm doing is surviving. And maybe surviving's enough right now, he said softly. You show up. You work hard. You take care of her. That counts for something. I looked over at Emma, her chest rising and falling gently. Her tiny fists curled like she was still on some imaginary sea adventure. She deserves better. Nate's voice was steady. She's got you. That's already better than most. He made us grilled cheese that day. One for me. One cut into tiny triangles for Emma. Don't tell anyone, he said. This isn't on the menu. VIPs only. The bread was thick, buttery, grilled just enough to have that golden crunch on the outside. I groaned through the first bite like I hadn't eaten in years. Maybe I hadn't, at least not like this. Not something made with care. You do this for all the guys you hire off the street. I asked, mouth full. He grinned. Only the ones with messy hair and pirate kids. My face flushed. I looked down, chewed slower. There was something here starting to form. I could feel it in the silences. The shared looks. The way our laughter came easier every time we crossed paths. It scared me a little. I wasn't ready for anything like this. But I was tired of pretending I didn't want it. That afternoon, when I slipped Emma into the back seat, she whispered, I like Nate. Yeah, I buckled her in. He's nice. Like you. I kissed her forehead. He is. She paused. Is he coming with us? My heart paused too. Where, baby? Home. She said like it was obvious. I didn't answer. Just tucked the blanket around her, smoothed her hair, and shut the door quietly. But her words stayed with me the rest of the night. Is he coming with us? And for the first time in weeks, I imagined what that might feel like. Not just surviving, but maybe having someone to come home to. That day, something shifted. The way he looked at me. The way I didn't look away. There was a tenderness building between us, slow and careful. But it was real, and I hadn't felt anything real in a long, long time. The storm hit harder that night. Winds pounded against the car like angry fists, and the rain came in sideways, battering the windows in sharp waves. Emma slept through most of it, but I didn't. I sat in the driver's seat, every muscle tight, watching her sleep in the back, wrapped in her tiny blanket, Captain Bunny tucked under her chin like a shield. The back window leaked. A slow drip landed in rhythm, hitting a plastic grocery bag with a soft plop. I caught myself staring at it like I could fix everything just by willing it to stop. Morning came, gray and sullen. Emma woke up with damp socks and a shiver in her voice. She didn't complain, didn't cry, just curled into me on the front seat and said, "Can we go back, Nate's?" And I said yes, because I couldn't say no anymore. We got there earlier than usual. The place wasn't even open yet. But the lights were on inside, warm and golden behind the foggy glass, and I could see Nate bent over the counter, scribbling something in a little notebook. I hesitated before knocking. This was different. This wasn't a shift. This was asking. But before I could decide, he looked up, and when he saw us, his face lit up like it was the best damn surprise he'd had all week. He came to the door and opened it wide. "You're early." "Storm was bad," I said, adjusting Emma on my hip. "She okay?" "She's fine," I said quickly, too quickly. "Just cold." I didn't know where else to. "Come in," he said, stepping aside. No hesitation. No question. "Both of you." The shop smelled like cinnamon and something roasted, rich and earthy. Nate knelt and helped Emma out of her wet boots, his hands gentle. He pulled a blanket from the back room and wrapped it around her shoulders like it was the most natural thing in the world. Then he looked at me, not with pity, with quiet understanding. "You've been sleeping in the car this whole time?" I looked away, didn't really have another option. His jaw tightened a little. Not at me, at the idea of it. "You should have said something." I shrugged, didn't want to show up and beg for help. He studied me for a long moment. "You didn't beg. You showed up. There's a difference." After the morning rush, when Emma was curled up in the armchair by the fireplace Nate had tucked into the corner, because of course he had a fireplace in his shop, I found myself lingering behind the counter, wiping down already clean surfaces just to stay close. Nate leaned against the espresso machine, arms crossed, watching me with that same quiet calm that got under my skin in ways I didn't expect. "You have anywhere to go tonight?" he asked, voice soft. I looked down at my hands. "I'll figure it out." "You don't have to." I glanced up. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, like he knew this was a line. "A step. I've got a spare room. It's not much. Just a bed and a dresser. But it's dry. Warm." My gut twisted. "I don't want you to feel like you have to." "I don't," he said. Firm. "I want to. Emma deserves better than a leaking car." "So do you." There was again that look, like I wasn't a burden, like I wasn't broken, like I mattered. I nodded slow. "Just a night, till I find something more permanent." He didn't push it, just gave a small nod in return. One night, we followed him home after closing. It was a walk-up apartment above the shop. Simple, lived in. Records stacked in a milk crate, worn paperbacks lining a shelf, a guitar resting in the corner like it was waiting for someone to remember it. The spare room was small but clean. The bed was made with fresh sheets. There was a little lamp on the nightstand, and the kind of softness in the air that only comes from someone who cares about their space. Emma ran her hands across the blanket and whispered, "It's so soft, Daddy." "Yeah," I said, voice thick. "It is." I tucked her in, kissed her forehead. She was asleep before I even stood up. I lingered in the doorway. Nate appeared behind me, hands in his pockets. "She's out cold," I said. He nodded. "She trusts you. She has to. I'm all she's got. You're more than enough." The words hit hard. Not dramatic. Not romantic. Just steady. Real. Later, I found him in the kitchen, sipping tea like he always had something warm in his hands. He looked up as I walked in, and the silence between us stretched into something electric. "You didn't have to do this," I said again. He set the mug down, leaning on the counter. "You didn't have to come back. But you did." I swallowed. "I didn't come back because I thought you'd save me." "I know. I came back because being here felt like breathing again." He didn't move, but his voice dropped lower. "Luke." I stepped closer. I didn't even mean to. It just happened. Like gravity. Like the pull of something inevitable. "I don't know what this is," I said, just inches from him. "But it scares the hell out of me." He looked at me, really looked at me, and didn't blink. "Me too." Then nothing happened. And yet everything did. Because I didn't pull away. And neither did he. In that small apartment, with the storm still echoing in the distance, and Emma sleeping down the hall, I stood with a man who didn't owe me anything, and gave me something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. And the beginning of something I wasn't sure I deserved, but maybe, just maybe, I could hold on to anyway. Mornings in Nate's apartment were quiet. Soft jazz trickled out from the record player in the living room. Something mellow, the kind of sound that fills the silence without breaking it. The air smelled like fresh coffee and toasted bread. Not survival food. Not gas station sandwiches or whatever I could scrounge in the dark. Real food. Real warmth. Emma had taken to the place like she'd lived there forever. She padded barefoot down the hall in her yellow sundress, her favorite one, the one with the tiny daisies, and climbed into Nate's lap like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Captain Bunny says good morning," she said, snuggling into him. "Good morning, Captain Bunny," Nate replied with a grin, pouring her a tiny cup of milk like it was tea time. I stood in the kitchen doorway, coffee in hand, watching it all. I should have fell out of place. But I didn't. I felt safe. And I hadn't felt that in a long, long time. Later that day, we walked down to the park. Emma ran ahead with her arms stretched like airplane wings, screaming about pirate treasure and invisible dragons. Nate walked beside me, sleeves rolled to his elbows, sunglasses hooked into the front of his shirt. The sun caught the flecks of gold in his eyes when he looked over at me. "You good?" he asked. I nodded, still figuring out how to be. He smiled slow. "You don't have to rush it." We sat on a bench while Emma played in the sandbox, burying Captain Bunny like some kind of sacred ritual. Nate handed me a sandwich he packed in a brown paper bag. Turkey and mustard, crust cut off. Like he knew what I needed without asking. "I used to have my own place," I said quietly, unwrapping it. "My own shop. I built it from nothing. Designed the logo myself. The shelves, the color palette, the whole thing. It was mine." He didn't say anything. Just listened. "I lost it all in a month," I went on. "One late payment. One wrong turn. A landlord who didn't give a shit. Emma got sick. I missed work. Clients ghosted me. Then poof. No shop. No home." I looked at him. "You ever have a moment like that? Where everything you built just falls apart?" Nate's gaze dropped to his hands. "Yeah," he said. "Before the roasted oak, I worked corporate. Made good money. Lived in a high-rise. Dated someone who looked perfect on paper. What happened?" He shrugged. "None of it made me happy. I woke up one morning, looked in the mirror, and couldn't stand the guy staring back at me. I leaned back. So you just walked away?" He smiled faintly. "Burned the whole thing down and started over. Must have taken guts. Took pain," he said, "and a lot of nights staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd ruined my life." I nodded. That part I understood. That night, Emma fell asleep early, curled in her new bed with Captain Bunny under one arm and a flashlight still on. I turned it off, kissed her goodnight, and closed the door behind me. Nate was on the couch, barefoot, strumming his guitar softly. Nothing fancy, just a few quiet chords, the kind that settle in your chest. "You play?" he asked, glancing up. "Used to. A little. College thing. Want to try?" I shook my head, sitting next to him. "Nah, I'd rather listen." He kept strumming. I watched his fingers move, slow and steady, callous from practice from time. "I haven't let anyone in since she died," I said after a while. I didn't mean to shut down. I just needed to protect what was left of me. He stopped playing, but didn't look away. "I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give, Luke. I know, but I'm here. I know that too." I reached over, fingers brushing his wrist. It was simple, barely a touch, but his skin was warm, and he didn't pull away. I didn't need fireworks. I didn't need declarations or grand gestures. I just needed this quiet, solid, honest. A place to breathe. A hand that didn't let go the second things got hard. Something like home. Something like him. That night, I lay awake in the spare bed, Emma breathing softly beside me. The walls didn't feel like someone else's anymore. The sheets didn't smell like a stranger's home. The rhythm of Nate's footsteps down the hall, checking locks, putting away mugs, felt like the lullaby I never knew I needed. And for the first time in months, I didn't dread tomorrow. I started to believe there could be one. Nate didn't touch me that morning, but his eyes did. I was at the sink, shirtless, washing breakfast plates while Emma buzzed around the living room with her stuffed animals and a mission only she understood. Sunlight spilled through the kitchen window. I must have looked like hell, sleep-rumpled hair, boxer waistband peeking out above borrowed sweats. But when I turned and caught Nate staring from the doorway, his gaze didn't flinch. "You keep looking at me like that," I said, "and I'm going to think you like what you see." He smiled, slow and sure. "I'm not trying to hide it." That did something to me. The shop was busier than usual. Saturday morning rush. I took orders while Nate worked the machine, the two of us in sync without needing words. He'd shout, "Double oat vanilla for the guy with the bike helmet," and I'd already be handing it off. Customers were starting to recognize me. Some even remember my name. It wasn't glamorous, but I liked it. I liked the way Nate brushed his fingers over my lower back when we passed each other in the tight space behind the counter. I like how he let Emma sit on a stool with crayons and a juice box during the lull between waves, drawing pirates and cats and scribbled hearts. I liked the way he looked at both of us, like we belonged here. That night, after dinner, he asked if I wanted to stay another night. I laughed. That an offer or a warning? It's whatever you want it to be. I studied him. "You sure?" I was sure 2 nights ago. I nodded, heart tight in my chest. "Then yeah, I want to stay." Emma was asleep, her breath soft and steady. I watched her for a while, brushing her curls off her forehead, then stepped out and closed her door behind me. The apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that dares you to speak. Nate was waiting in the living room, legs crossed on the couch, mug in hand. He didn't say anything, just watched me come in. I sat down beside him. We didn't talk for a moment. We didn't need to. He reached out first, fingers brushing mine. "Can I ask something?" he said. "Shoot." "Are you scared?" I nodded. "Every second." He looked down at our hands. "Me too. But I want this," I added, "even if I don't know what it is yet." He leaned in, voice barely above a whisper. "Me too." The kiss wasn't urgent. It didn't burn. It didn't ache. It settled. His lips were soft but sure, his hand cupping my jaw like he was holding something precious. I closed my eyes and let go of everything. The doubt, the shame, the weight of months trying to survive. This wasn't surviving. This was living. When we pulled apart, my forehead rested against his, our breaths warm between us. "I don't want to mess this up," I murmured. "You won't," he said, eyes locked on mine. "You're already enough." That night, I didn't go back to the spare room. I lay next to him in his bed, sheets tangled around our legs, our hands finding each other under the covers. Nothing more. Nothing rushed. He didn't ask for anything. Didn't expect. Just was there. We talked until we were too tired to keep our eyes open, about music, old heartbreaks, the dumbest things we've ever done for love. I told him how Emma calls me Captain Daddy. He laughed so hard he nearly cried. And when I finally slept, it was the deepest sleep I'd had in months. Because this wasn't temporary anymore. This was a beginning. Waking up next to Nate was disorienting in the best way. Not because it felt strange, because it didn't. It felt natural. Like we'd been doing this for years. His bare arm was warm against mine, heavy across my waist. The early light filtered in through the curtains, casting soft gold across the sheets. I blinked a few times, just taking it in, his slow breathing, the tiny frown he wore in sleep, the way his hair always looked like he just rolled out of a windstorm, even though he was still. He stirred, brow relaxing, then cracked open one hazel eye. "Mornin'," he mumbled, voice wrecked with sleep. "Morning," I whispered back. "You always stare like that." "Only when I'm trying to figure out if I dreamed this." He smiled, eyes still closed. You didn't. Emma was already awake when I got to her room, sprawled sideways, her dress bunched at her knees, and her stuffed animals arranged in a perfect semicircle around her. She sat up when she saw me. Captain Bunny says this place is magic. I scooped her into my arms, kissed her nose. You and Captain Bunny aren't wrong. We made breakfast together, pancakes, badly shaped, but full of joy. Nate came in midway through, yawning and rubbing his eyes. Emma handed him a plate like she'd been doing it her whole life. He winked at her. You've got the makings of a great chef, you know that. She beamed, syrup on her cheek. I just watched them, chest tight with something I hadn't dare hope for. Something like family. Later that day, I had my first real design client in weeks. A small job, a logo for a local candle maker Nate knew through the shop. Nothing huge, but I worked at the little table in the corner of the cafe with a sketch pad and my laptop, Emma beside me drawing flaming cats and glittery suns, and Nate bringing us drinks like we were royalty. The world hadn't changed, but something inside me had. I wasn't scraping by anymore. I wasn't just the guy who used to have shop. I was doing it again, piece by piece. And Nate, God, Nate, he didn't swoop in and save me. He just held space, gave me room, saw me. That evening, I helped him close up the shop. Emma was asleep in the carrier on my back, arms flopped over my shoulders, her little breaths warm against my neck. Nate flipped the sign to closed, then turned off the lights one by one. We stood in the quiet glow of the front window. Outside, the street was soft with night. You okay? He asked. I nodded, and, for the first time in a while, I meant it. I am. He looked at me like he wanted to say something. Then he stepped closer. I'm falling for you, he said. No hesitation. No build-up. Just truth. It landed in my chest like a key in the right lock. I'm already there, I said. Then I kissed him, deep and slow, with Emma snoring softly between us. And I thought, this is what the other side of alone feels like. It's not fireworks. It's quiet, solid, warm. It's arms around you when you're too tired to stand. A steady voice when your own shakes. It's love, not trying to fix you, just choosing to stay. It rained the next morning. The city blurred behind the glass of Nate's apartment windows, streaks of silver and gray softened by steam from the coffee pot, and Emma's laughter as she danced barefoot on the couch, pretending the floor was lava. Nate handed me a mug and stood beside me at the window, our shoulders brushing. Neither of us said much. We didn't need to. The quiet between us had changed. It wasn't heavy anymore, it was full. Full of what we didn't say out loud, because we both already felt it. Full of a new rhythm we'd fallen into. Full of something that looked a hell of a lot like love. Later that afternoon, Emma and I headed to the library, her raincoat flapping as she jumped over every puddle like they were oceans. I watched her, heart clenching the way it always did when I remembered how close we'd come to losing this. This simple joy, her sunshine smile, the freedom to just be. We returned home. Nate's home, still, but something had shifted. Emma ran ahead, straight through the door, calling, Daddy, where's my bunny? Like she knew this was hers too now. And maybe it was. Maybe home wasn't something I had to rebuild from scratch. Maybe it was something you found, unexpected, in the arms of someone who knew how to hold your chaos without trying to tame it. That night, we made dinner together, all three of us. Emma mashed potatoes like it was an Olympic sport. Nate chopped herbs and hummed to the sound of the rain. I stood there in the kitchen just watching, soaking in the way our lives were knitting together like puzzle pieces that had been waiting for each other. Later, after Emma was asleep, curled up between her stuffed bunny and a library book she hadn't finished, I joined Nate in the living room. He was sitting cross-legged on the couch, thumbing through an old poetry collection, soft lamplight glowing across his collarbone. I sat beside him, and without a word, he leaned in and kissed me. Not a question, not a maybe, just yes. We moved slow, hands exploring, mouths searching, not for pleasure, but for connection, for grounding, for proof that this thing between us wasn't a dream. Clothes fell away. The space between us disappeared. And when I came undone in his arms, forehead pressed to his, I didn't feel lost. I didn't feel ashamed. I felt found. Nate held me close, his chest against my back, his breath slow and warm. "Is this real?" I asked. He kissed my shoulder. "It is if you want it to be." I turned to look at him. "I do, and I meant it. With everything in me, I meant it." Weeks later, we unpacked the last of my boxes. Emma helped. She insisted on drawing little hearts on the moving labels and decided which corner of the living room Captain Bunny should sit in. Nate didn't try to control anything. He just watched it unfold with that small, quiet smile I'd learned to love. We didn't celebrate with champagne. We celebrated with pancakes and bedtime stories, with kisses that lasted a little too long in the hallway, with a light left on in case Emma had bad dreams. And as I lay there that night, in a bed that wasn't borrowed anymore, Nate asleep beside me and Emma breathing softly in the next room, I realized something. Home isn't a place. It's a person who sees you when you're broken and still wants to stay. It's a tiny voice yelling, "Daddy," and a hand that fits perfectly in yours. It's coffee in the morning, rain on the windows, and quiet nights wrapped in arms that never let you go. It's this, us, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.